workshop, we're going to be talking about success leaves trails. And this is where I want to go back to the very first presentation, to the very first workshop we did together, where I introduced you to my personal journey as a content creator, where I've told you that I picked the niche P2E, play to earn, and I did gaming, and that was all I covered. And so I rode the wave, I went up with it, I went down with it, and this was how I started. And along the way, I've told you how I've pivoted multiple times. You can see Kermit as a donut, you can see Kermit as the Bobu token bean guy, you can see Kermit as this iteration, and finally, you can see my latest iteration. And along the way, I've had some iterations here and there. So I've told you about my personal journey. I've told you about the tools I've used to get to where I am today. I've told you about the persona builder in our very first workshop, personal stories about branding, about what content types I use, what content types other people use. I've told you about how I'm leveraging video. I've told you about the 10 rules for creation by Kermit B. Kermitson, New York Times bestseller. But, and this is a very big but, my way of creating content is not the only way. In fact, there are thousands of other ways you get to choose from. And this is something I've been reflecting on for a while, really, because I get a lot of people come up to maybe a call with me, maybe it's a text message, maybe it's a DM, a private message, where they tell me, Kermit, I'm not very confident going on video. Am I not gonna make it? I don't want to do video. I don't want to do spaces. Maybe I don't like the vibes of spaces. Am I gonna make it? I don't like this. I don't like that. Am I gonna make it? And this is where it's dawned on me that the most demotivating thing you can do is have the belief or hold the belief that there's only one way of making it as a content creator. And this couldn't be further from the truth. Because what I'm going to show you today is the case study of countless of other creators that have been able to make it. And the term made it as a content creator hopefully is something personal to you, a personal definition perhaps, because there are thousands of creators that have made it in their respective domains, doing their respective things and paving their respective paths. Starting with the person that many people consider to be the epitome of content creation. Many people, understandably so, look up to Whale as the content creator, the king of kings, if you will. And this is very understandable because, well, if you look at NFT Inspect, Whale has consistently managed to maintain that number one spot for such a long time. However, I want to take us back to the start of this year, January 1, 2023, where even shockingly to me, because I don't remember Whale at these numbers, exactly 10 months ago, Whale was at 6,000 followers. This is a tenth of what he's at today. He's at this beautiful number, 69K. And you can start seeing where Whale has put in a lot of time to his craft before he even started with the slow momentum and then picked up all of a sudden. And you can see that from the beginning of the year, January 1st, to February 1st, a month later, he managed to double his following. He went from 6K to 12K. And you can also see that, he got hired as a researcher in residence for Azuki when he reached 20K. What does this show me? It doesn't show me that people need 20K to be hired and to find job deals or workflow, because most likely this deal didn't just come in exactly on that day. Most likely, the team and Whale have been talking for a while. So if deal flows typically take 2 to 4 weeks, this means that Whale was somewhere between 8,000 to maybe even 10,000 followers when Azuki initially approached him. And all of a sudden, this breaks away what I think is the misconception that I need to have this magic 10K number to even do anything that is worthwhile. Because Whale was able to start paving his own way, making a name for himself well before he picked up this momentum. The momentum followed. And this is where I want to highlight a personal story that Whale made recently. I really liked this post. He said, "I failed. Back in late 2022, I was close to giving up. I had been making content daily for the past month. However, it led to nothing. Some pieces of content performed well, but often I spent hours researching and writing only to get 100 views. I started to question the meaning of what I was doing. I spent hours every day and I enjoyed it, but maybe I should be doing something else instead. What if all this time that I invested, all this effort, ended up for nothing?" I was down. Then one thread went viral. Then another thread went viral. Then another. This went on for weeks and months. Then Azuki offered me the researcher in residence position. This was the break I needed. From then on, one thing led to another, and today, a few months later, I'm in the position I've always dreamed of. You never know how close you really are. When you're about to give up, that's when the next win might be right around the corner. Don't give up. Trust. And it's this story with Whale Buckets earlier. You were mentioning how maybe it's not all about the numbers. Maybe it's not all about, the engagement and the metrics. Maybe it's also a bit about what you enjoy to do, what you enjoy doing. I was on a space yesterday with Whale, and we were talking about different ways to make it as a content creator. And this is where I mentioned my passion for video. And this is where I said, videos might not be what's hot right now. They might not be boosted on an algorithm level, but I simply enjoy doing them. And this is exactly what Leon was talking about as well. And this is where Whale honed in and he reflected the same thing. He said, "Kermit, I can resonate 100% because for me personally, threads weren't algorithmically up. They weren't boosted when I first started. I don't know if you noticed, but threads weren't popular before Whale started picking up. What was popular back then was what we call today a shitpost. Maybe also the engagement farm. Yet Whale kept on doing what he liked until he found one that suitable value proposition, which is giving insight to people. So in a wave of shit posting, he was the person guiding people throughout the market, giving them insight into how to navigate all of this uncertainty. And that's how he popularized threads. In fact, I don't know if you remember, but for quite a long time in his bio, Whale had director of threads. So Whale did very well in creating this association with himself, with his persona, with his branding, as the threader, as the director of threads, and as a key thought leader. So we'll come back to Whale in a second. The second person I want to mention is, and one person I highly, highly look up to, is NFT God, Alex. And I don't know how many people know this. It shocked me when I found out, but Alex started being a very enthusiastic key proponent of Creeps, the NFT project. You can see, he was posting newsletter articles about Creeps. Oh, staking is going live on Creeps this weekend. This is big. This is what he was covering. And for the longest time, I will never forget one of his posts where he was talking about how he grew his audience to the size he's at today. He said one of the most important things is to find your community. For this, obviously, this can be Chimpers. And what's important is it should be a community you resonate with values you resonate with. And this is the most important bit, is become the loudest voice in the community. And what this means, what he did specifically, is every AMA they hosted, he would attend, he would raise his hand, try to speak. Every spaces they made, he would be there every single time. He would raise his hand, he would try to speak, he would try to provide value. In fact, he sat down with himself, he asked himself, how can I give value? What is my personal value? What personal value can I give? And he would try to give it as much as possible to the Creeps community, day in, day out. He would be on that Discord chat, on Twitter, everywhere. And so he became recognized within his community. And that took him from his road to from zero all the way to 5,000. And then that's where he started breaking out of the that bubble. And there is something that I'll never forget about Alex, something he said that sticks with me to this day. In one of his interviews, he said there are thousands of growth gurus on X. There are thousands of people talking about NFTs. There are thousands of people talking about crypto. And they're all likely better than you. This is the sad reality, is you can pick any one niche. You can be damn great at it. The reality is someone out there is going to very likely be better than you. However, there's only one person talking about coding, self-growth, entrepreneurship, and finance. That's me. And this is my favorite, what I'm about to show you, my favorite quote of all time. Don't follow a niche, create it. And I think NFT God Alex personifies this quote so well. He doesn't just talk about tech. He doesn't just talk about NFTs. He's called NFT God. He mentions NFTs once every 20 posts, maybe, because he's managed to create his own niche. And that's how he's led in his own niche, because there's no one doing the exact combination of niches he's doing. And this is how he's been able, to do these banger posts, get replies from Elon, and associate himself with coding, self-growth, and entrepreneurship. Next up, we have our resident video creator, Chimp NFT, Nate. Of course, you all know him. If I were to ask you, what association do you have with Nate? Most of you would say video content, and you'd be right. Nate has been uploading so many videos for 2 years now. I've scrolled all the way down on his YouTube channel. He's been making videos for exactly 2 years now. And by the way, if you ever want to see someone's oldest videos on YouTube, don't do my mistake. I scrolled all the way down until the end, where I realized there's a button where you can sort videos by the oldest. So in case you want to do that, just don't scroll mindlessly. I think I spent like a good 5 to 10 minutes just scrolling. So you can just sort by the oldest. So as you guessed it, Nate did a great job at associating his brand with video content and market updates, leading people throughout the market. And of course, I want to also mention Shiv. You've most likely seen Shiv on practically any spaces, any banger spaces that you see around. Shiv is likely either a key panelist, the host, or the co-host. And you can see him. I mean, he's one of the co-hosts at the Iceberg Radio, one of the spaces for the Little Pudgies community. and he's front facing. He's the co-host of every single one of Whale's shows. Whale recently announced 3 shows. He's the co-host of every single one of them. And this is the route he's taken. He hasn't gone with threads. He hasn't gone with video, unlike NFT Nate. He hasn't gone with threads, unlike Whale. He's chosen to go the path of spaces and dominate with spaces. This is how he's created the association of Space King. One of my personal favorites, you might know him, you might not. His name is Mungo. What I love about Mungo is he doesn't try to go for the threads. He doesn't try to give you insight into the market and alpha and all of that. He does what he does best, which is draw and do great art. His art is some of my favorite. It always makes me happy whenever I see it pop on my timeline. And that's the skill he's honed in on. So his association art. Another key resident of the Chimpers Academy and Chimpers in general is Bichek. 1 second. I think I'll need some water now.
Kermit's suffering.
Man, I underestimated this cold. All right. So one of the resident Chimpers creator is, well, Bichek. Bichek hasn't tried to go down the thread rabbit hole, the video rabbit hole, although he is slowly starting to make great videos. New filler unlocked. I need some water. I love it. Instead, Bichek went for what he loved, which was reporting the daily news through his newsletter, through his posts. And then he started adapting it through different media forms like spaces and recently videos. Legendary is also a great example. He specialized himself in market research, insight, and branding. We have Moritz. Moritz has I don't know if you've watched the rise of Moritz, but he's mainly focused on alpha calls. He's always been that person to give you that early alpha. Oh, this project might be coming. Oh, this project might be big. Watch out for it. So he's created great association with alpha calls and insights. If you've seen Sami, you never see him do your typical deep dive thread. Instead, what you see him do is cover Web3 adoption news. Coca-Cola is partnering with Base. Base is coming as a layer 2. Pokemon Courtyard is digitizing Pokemon cards on chain. So Sami has done very well at associating himself with adoption news. And lastly, but certainly not least, our resident video content creator Leon has done a terrific job at associating himself as with marketing content and video content. In fact, a story I wanted to tell that, while Babitz mentioned, pointed out, Leon had made a post. It had roughly around 1,000 views. I remember when we first started our agency, and I don't know if this is a story you want me to tell, Leon, or not, but I think it's very valuable to the skill and dedication of choosing your niche and being the best at that niche, regardless of the amount of engagement. I remember when we were setting the agency, Leon told me, man, I'll take care of marketing. I'll take care of all of that. You take care of fulfillment. That's how we'll divide our roles. I was like, great. That gives me some time. Maybe I have a month. Maybe I have 2 months before Leon closes anyone. So I have my time. I'm sitting pretty. Life continues as usual. Then Leon uploads a video on YouTube. I'm like, okay, great. He started. I'm sitting pretty, waiting. There's enough time. A couple of days go by. Leon texts me. He's like, Kermit, guess what? We just closed our first client. I'm like, what? You just uploaded one video. What do you mean we closed our first client? He's like, yeah, we closed our first client. And I remember I went to the video because I hadn't watched this is something I want him to know. I didn't watch the entirety of the video back then. I had watched the intro, but I went back to the video. I watched all of it and I was like, damn, the difference between all the videos that were already out there and the video Leon was presenting. I still remember the video to this day. It was a case study on a project that had recently sold out. All of a sudden, Leon was able to break down and reverse engineer every single step this project made from inception to sellout in a clear and concise manner, which was extremely insightful and valuable to potential clients. So, Leon, do you have any feedback and insight on maybe this little story, maybe your decision to take on this content through this lens?
Yeah, man, I appreciate that, Kermit. I really do. It's it goes back to everything Kermit was saying. I love to live by this philosophy, which is create where you consume. For me, I just love marketing. Like for fun, you send me to the library, I will walk out with a book about marketing psychology, about the brands. I won't walk out with a fiction book because that's what I love. So, and I was a lot more of a YouTube watcher than I was an X scroller. So it was normal, it was natural for me to create where I was consuming, which was on YouTube. So that's what I'll invite you guys. And once you identify something that works, lean into it. You know, Bubbits. I don't know if Bubbits is still here. He might have hopped off for spaces. But once you do get a thread or tweet or post or video or spaces that pops, and you get the data, double down on that type of content. When I started seeing storytelling marketing content was working, I've leaned into it. So these are my thoughts.
I love it, man. I appreciate you giving me the 1 minute I needed to clear my throat for the rest of this call.
You've been suffering, man. It's painful to see you.
I'm good. I'm good, man. I'm good. All right. And this is where I wanted to talk about the spaces that I was on yesterday. While I mentioned a bit of it at the beginning of the presentation, really the biggest takeaway for me was that story of Whale, of how he consistently kept putting out threads, regardless of whether they were the meta or not, regardless of whether they were in, regardless of whether they were getting crazy engagement or not. And the same thing applies to Leon, to Bubbit, to myself, to every single one of us. And the most memorable part was when Whale recalled that, while threads weren't in, he kept doing them. And this allowed him to be at the perfect place for when threads were all of a sudden picked up by the algorithm. Because what he was able to do all of a sudden is, hey, now I'm a master of threads. I've been doing this for a long enough time on a big enough scale that now the threads are working. I can shoot threads from the hips, left, right, and center. I can upload threads every single weekday if I want to. And if it's only by being consistent with what you like to do that you're going to be able to place yourself in a position like Whale, where, say, for example, you like doing videos, but videos aren't in. We all know how fast the meta changes. We all know how fast trends come and go. One moment, threads are great. The other moment, they're bad. They're dead. The other moment, long forms are great. And then GIFs are great, and then videos are great. So that keeps on changing. If you pick a lane and stay consistent in it, all of a sudden, when that time comes, you pick up, you gain notoriety for what you've been doing, and you become a credible source for every single thing you've been sporting all this time. And this is where I bring it back to what Whale said. You never know how close you really are. When you're about to give up, that's when the next win might be right around the corner. Don't give up. Trust. And lastly, my favorite quote from NFT God: don't follow a niche, create it. And I think it's with this I want to wrap up today's. I still have one slide. I will share it at the end of the questions bit.